California, it was pro-growth. It was the land of aspiration.
Do you think California's brand has been tarnished?
I'm a Californian, you're a Californian. Our brand's tarnished. And collectively, we as Californians, how do we improve ourselves? California is no longer affordable. California is no longer livable. And frankly, it's not workable. And that's why we've seen, in my opinion, a migration out.
My guest today is Stephen Cloobeck, businessman and founder of Diamond Resorts International. Today he'll explain why he thinks California's brand has been tarnished and what will it take to turn things around for California.
Trust me, I had a choice of living anywhere I wanted to. I didn't have to come back home. I wanted to come back home because I grew up here and I love California. Because there's not a better state to live in the United States than California.
I'm Siamak Korami. Welcome to California Insider. Stephen, great to have you on. Welcome.
Thank you for having me here today.
We want to talk to you about California. And we have been covering a lot of California issues and problems in the last few years. And one of the reasons we're doing that is to highlight these problems so we can make California better. You're someone that has been in the business world and you've come back to California and you have some ideas to solve the problems of the state. Can you tell us what you see in this state? You've grew up here and then you've lived here for many years, built businesses, and then now you're back and you're seeing the state. Can you tell us what you see?
Great question. When I grew up in Southern California, and I was here till I was 30, and I grew up in the San Fernando Valley. And those were the days you could ride your bike down to the grocery store, you could run to the gym, you'd play in the street. And I went to public and private schools. And our schools in California were always number one. California was the bully pulpit of the United States. You know, I went to school and then went to university, thought I'd be a surgeon. Came back to California. I was working at Cedars-Sinai Medical Center. I thought I was going to be a cardiac thoracic surgeon and decided to no longer go to school because I wanted to make money. And California was a land of, again, aspiration. So I went to Cal State Northridge and learned accounting 101 and 102 and ended up going into the real estate business and building and learning the shopping center business. And I built shopping centers throughout Southern California in my 20s. Then moved to Newport Beach and created my shopping center development business. And in those days, I built my first shopping center in Burbank, California at Victor and Magnolia, and it's still there. There's actually two tenants that have new owners. There's a taqueria and a nail salon. And I've visited it just to go say hi. And it's kind of cute to see what I built in my 20s. In the 80s, 1980s, is still there. Those were days where I would have my plans drawn and take those plans myself to the city and get my permit over the counter.
Same day or a few days?
Of course, they reviewed it and I'd come back and pay my fees for my mechanical, electrical, plumbing, and structural. And I would build a center that was pre-leased. And it was so effortless, and there was the meaning of yes. Today, I've come back to California because I've operated here as a hotelier. We'll get to that in a minute. And California is the meaning of no. It's the land of obstruction. It was pro-development. It was pro-growth. It was the land of aspiration. And now that I've worked around the world, because I created a very large worldwide hotel company, I've had the opportunity of operating in all states, in 35 countries, and California is closed for business, I'm sorry to say. And it's closed for business in so many forms and fashions. California is no longer affordable. California is no longer livable. And frankly, it's not workable. And that's why we've seen, in my opinion, a migration out. Now, I left the state to build my hotel company. I built my first hotel at 29 in Las Vegas and expanded that through numerous transactions to building a a very successful hospitality company worldwide called Diamond Resorts. But I used all my knowledge and learning from the shopping center development that I learned in Southern California. From Hanford, many shopping centers in Bakersfield, Buena Park, La Puente, Hemet, Yucaipa, Mission Viejo, Lake Forest. I mean, I can go on and on. But it wasn't so difficult to build. And I was a young man. And I had a couple that were very rough because we went through the recession of the late 80s. But I learned to build, and I persevered. I learned business from great mentors. Steve Wynn, Michael Milken, finance. He actually gave me my business degree. He's a damn good business teacher. I'd put that up against Harvard or Penn or Yale. And Harry Reid, my adopted father, taught me politics and policy. And I've known those gentlemen, Mike Milken since I was 13, Harry Reid since I was 15, and I ended up working with them. Never did I believe that that would happen, because I learned to always pivot in my life. So I come back to California because I had a beach home in Laguna Beach, and I operated many hotels in California, my worldwide company, and I was seeing in my operations the difficulty with human resource law in California becoming more and more difficult. And I think that's a problem why businesses are leaving.
So in your hotel, the hotel property you were managing,
I owned and managed, yes.
You will see that in this property there's something going on with HR.
There were Department of Real Estate regulatory issues because I dealt in a very regulated business. I ran a bank, I ran an insurance company, I dealt with the Department of Real Estate, the attorney generals of every state.
So you're operating in all states, and then you will see the difference between California and the other states.
Not just California and all states. I operated my human resource department at 84 component parts because I operated in all 50 states plus 34 other countries. That's 84 divisions of human resources. California and Hawaii were the most restrictive, and actually Californians now has become more restrictive than Hawaii, and Hawaii was the toughest. And that's one of the epicenters of growth. And I believe that's one of the reasons why California is no longer open for business. And I think there's other attributes, whether it's insurance or it's the inability to build CEQA. We've got these impediments that have been created that are laws upon laws upon laws created by the legislature of our state, because I've done some homework here, without understanding the unintended consequences of these laws and how they operate, because they forgot about what it's like to sign the front of a check and create jobs. They've forgotten about the most important concept. We, the taxpayer, we're the consumer. They haven't talked to us. And they're not giving us equal or greater value to the tax dollars we spend. And there's so many different things you and I can talk about with regard to this. And there's solutions. That's the good news, because Harry Reid taught me. He was a silent assassin. And he taught me to be that way. A good leader. Leaders lead, they command and control. We in California have headline. We've got concepts and thoughts, but we forgot about some component parts underneath that. Execution of the concept. Accountability of that concept. That means know your numbers. Don't tell me you spend billions of dollars and not know where it's spent. And then enforcement for bad actors. If I had a magic wand, I would put all legislation on hold right now until we understand what we have and do we have return on invested capital for those pieces of legislation that has already been put in place. Let's see what it looks like. Are we getting equal or greater value to what's been put in place? And at the same time, only passed legislation that would be an emergency act. I've been fortunate enough not just to be in business, but I've started as an activist. I have legislated, that means written and changed laws, in many states. I have regulated, I've been a regulator, and I've also adjudicated, I've held court. So I've had to make tough decisions as a leader. Kind of the hanging judge most of the time. Because if you violate the law, to me, it's binary. We don't violate laws. We could talk about that with regard to Proposition 47, the new Proposition 36 coming up, and we're making at least advances. So if you look at the state that I've come back to, where we were a progressive state that always had compassion, and we're on the forefront, the bully pulpit of the United States, we are no longer that. Our education system is no longer number one. We have human resource law that is antiquated and it impedes small, medium, and large-sized businesses. Why do you think we have businesses fleeing?
Now, Stephen, you mentioned that out of the 84 regions where you operated, California was the toughest one. Can you give us some ideas how? Or was there a moment you realized that now California has become the toughest place?
Well, on the extreme opposite side, it would be at will. Everyone works at will. And other areas, you would have a contract for services, and there would be obligations of both sides. Today, people can gang up on an employer, whether it's a small entrepreneur or medium-sized business or large-sized business, and sue them under a concept called PAGA. That's a class action lawsuit against an employer, whether small, medium, or large, or an independent operator. And it's basically putting people out of business. I'm used to working in a union environment, and I'm a big union guy. My hotels, we operated union, non-union, but I've worked with union labor all the time. Carpenters, electrical engineers, machinists, Unite, hotel workers, food and beverage. I'm good with union. We always have simpatico. We always get along because we want everyone to do well, okay? And workers' rights are very important, but if you're a good employer, okay, you create team, culture. California has now lost that. Go try to pull a permit today. You don't even know when you're going to get one. How does one underwrite building anything in California today? It could be argued forever and ever and ever, and sometimes factions use this weapon of arguing as a tool which impedes development, which makes costs rise. Fair wage, okay, I get that when it comes to union labor. I'm cool with it, but can you do a good job? Union labor used to be the best of the best of the best, but now it's a political weapon in this uncivil political world we live in of hard right and hard left. But guess what? 68 to 70% of us are in that center, and there's no voice for the center because all we hear is the loud noise of the ultra-progressives or the ultra-conservatives. But we collectively are not that. We're Californians. And we need a voice today.
If you like California Insider and you like to know what's going on in California, make sure to check out Epoch Times. This is a newspaper that started by a group of Chinese Americans because of human rights abuses in China, and now is starting to grow here. Make sure to go to the Epoch Times website and check out the California section, where you can get a lot of fresh perspectives on what's going on in California. Now let's go back to the interview. Was there a point that you saw that something in California doesn't seem how it used to be? Was there a pivotal moment when you realized that your operations in California has become different? It's changed so much that...
Yeah, for whatever reason, the bureaucracy of California has been led in such a way, and, you know, I'm friends with most of the leaders. I just have different leadership styles. Because I've operated not just on the business side, signing the front of the check, coming out of my pocket for payroll. I started as a busboy that went to the boardroom that's still a busboy. I'm here to serve. I'm not looking to jump hierarchy. I never even cared about titles. I pick up cigarette butts. I wipe tables, clean tables, still today, because I actually like it, because I'm here to serve. And I don't need people serving me. I don't like that. I like cooking. That's actually a hobby of mine. You must earn the people's trust. Then you must show respect. You must be responsible. You must show results that are meaningful and measurable. And if not, bye-bye. And I think we're at the point of insanity. You know what the definition of insanity is?
Doing the same thing over and over.
And what? Expecting a different result, but you know it doesn't happen. So that's a never-ending cycle. And that's where we're at. It's almost as if I grew up on a cul-de-sac. I don't know if you know what a cul-de-sac is. We used to play in it, ride our skateboards, and, light little smoke bombs and be mischievous as kids. When you get to the end of cul-de-sac, you got to turn around. Guess what? California's there. We can't go any further left. It's time to turn around. So that means we need to move forward. We need to move forward. And unfortunately, that's to the right, because that's the only way we're going to get to the center. And we need to find that balance between a little bit left and a little bit right. And people use the word common sense all the time. No, it's experience and intellect. It's serving, doing what's best for the people. But when you do that, you've got to talk to the people first and always have constant communication with your best customers. Why do you think all these businesses have left? Because our government and leadership of this state never spent time with their best customers.
So did you try to talk to them when you were running this? You were definitely in contact with these leaders, right? With the state representatives.
I've operated in many, many states, and I've operated in many countries, and I always talk to leadership. I always try to build trust. And
did
then
you sense a
walk the
difference
talk.
between California and other states?
There are bright spots in California. There is some new leadership in California, young leadership, that I'm very, very, very impressed with. A leader leads, commands, and controls. And you can only do that with experience and only earning the trust of your team and your culture. Okay? And we have leadership today that can be taught that by a leader that can coach, counsel, and teach and train. And that's what the leader of this state should be in the future. We need a leader that has business experience and legislative experience and regulatory experience, somebody who's actually done it. Okay, that's my opinion. These are my personal opinions. And I've interviewed a lot of folks throughout the state to learn. I've taken 12 months to really get into the nits and gnats, to understand the balance sheet and the income statement of this state and ask the real tough questions. These are hard truths. Hard truths. The elephant in the room, nobody wants to talk about. But guess what? Now's the time.
So do you think these laws that we've been passing, every year we're passing a lot of laws.
Too many laws. There are laws to pass laws to go back to their constituency to say, oh, look what I've done. But some of these laws have not been thought through because they don't have metrics attached to them. How do we judge in the future if they're going to be good, bad, or ugly? How do we know? Every law should have metrics attached to it, and they should be looked at 1, 3, and 5 years in the future. And we should look at our past laws to see, have we got the return on our investment back from them? Now, this is the way you do this, but you can only do it if you've done your due diligence and make a list of priorities, and you can't fix everything at once. So you have to have priorities. Okay? Like, if you look at all of our past governors in the state of California, and you look at who has vetoed what, and you try to learn from the shoulders of others, no pointing fingers. They're all great humans, great. They all have strengths and weaknesses, so how do you take those strengths, remove the weaknesses, and then grow on the shoulders of them to make California rebranded and open back for business? How do we take California from losing 39 million people to maybe grow it to 44 million? That means 5 million people. That means we have to be open for business. How do we do that? What are the steps? What levers do we pull that are short-term, intermediate, and long-term past a person's being in office that will last the test of time? When I created the Tourism Department of the United States of America, it was ground up. Articles, bylaws, bank accounts, relationships, liaisoning with Homeland Security, Customs and Borders, the Senate, the House, Treasury, Commerce, Interior, and the State Department, changing visa policy between countries, Brazil and the United States, China and the United States. I've been involved in all of that. Involved in global entry. Do you have global entry?
I used to have global entry here.
It's a great system. I was involved. And how do we do this cost effectively? Brand USA, it was called the Travel Promotion Act of the United States. Funny story. We're all sitting in a room, Disney, United Airlines, State of California. Visit California, by the way, is outstanding. Carolyn Batetta, who runs that, she and I work together. Great, great, great talent. And Colleen Bell, too, who runs entertainment right now, and which is film and TV. Another thing we could talk about. These are exports of our state. I know it's counterintuitive. Tourism and travel and entertainment are exports. There's no CapEx needed. Huge GDP growth for us.
So if people come, there's no cost to us.
There is no cost to us. The Golden Gate Bridge is there. Yosemite's here. All the studios are here. Why are we losing this? People travel within our state to use these great attributes of our state. People come from other states and come into our state. People come internationally from all over the world into our great state. That adds to our GDP. And we need to market to those areas with these exports where we could get the best return on invested capital.
Do you think California's brand has been tarnished in a sense that people may not as many people want to look up to California to come here to do tourism, or do you think that brand is still very strong?
I'm a Californian, you're a Californian. Our brand's tarnished. We lost 1 million people. It's no joke. We lost some really important taxpayers. Why? Because we didn't talk to them and ask them what they needed to stay. We didn't involve them in the conversation to help us unify. And collectively, we as Californians, how do we improve ourselves? Where did we fall into some potholes? We've got to think 5, 6, 7 steps ahead. 10 games of chess, 7 levels out. That's how we should operate. So involve all of our consumers, all of them. And we've got a diverse group of consumers.
So why do you think the brand is tarnished? What are the reasons?
That large center, 68 to 70% of all of us, have been apathetic. We haven't risen up. But I think we're at that point where we've had enough and we can't take it anymore because we're all feeling it with the lack of safety and security, with the rising costs of insurance or being booted from insurance and having to self-insure, with the cumbersome healthcare requirements we have in this state. Proposition, 98 on education? Am I right? 40% of our tax dollars go to education. You can check me on my numbers.
Yeah.
Insurance is 103. Education's 98.
98.
40%. Every child has a civil right to a great education. Our foundation is cracked. It needs to be filled. Our foundation's not broken. That's not broken. We need to disrupt government in California. Take business, legislative, regulatory, and adjudication, marry it together. A lot of public-private partnerships, but you got to rebuild the trust, because guess what? They busted the trust. I've been very involved with the LA Dream Center for homelessness, and I'm helping Mayor Bass with her efforts, and she's doing an admirable job. I led with my wallet, and I've led with my experience, because I've taken care of 42 homeless families over the last 3 years at the LA Dream Center. And I've spoken to those families, and I've spoken to the entire group. Pastor Barnett does a hell of a job there, and he's taught me a lot. And it's a 1-year program or longer. People come out with a sense of pride, a sense of purpose. Everyone needs a purpose. Everyone needs a purpose. Everyone wants to do well. Now, there's a small subset of people that need mental health for a long period of time. We get that, and we take care of them. But when people leave the LA Dream Center, they leave with a checkbook of $10,000. They're prepared for the real world. They have a purpose and a job lined up, and I've talked to the men and women and young adults there. And I've listened. More importantly, the art of listening is important. They all want a purpose, and they've all gone on to great things. I mean, there's so many different concepts here, but service, I believe everyone should serve. I'd be all for a day of service, and then maybe a week of service. We all together, we have to fix this. And unfortunately, till we get new leadership in this state, we in the philanthropic world are going to have to bridge some of these issues with regard to police and sheriffs. We're going to have to help out. We're going to have to help out. We're going to have to help clean the streets. I know it's not our job. We pay taxes for that, but we together and collectively have to do that. We need to take back our communities, take back our counties, and take back our state.
Now, Stephen, from the discussions I've had with some of the state representatives, what they're telling me is they look at a lot of issues and they do a lot of polling. And they're making decisions based on what people want, what the perspectives are, and they vote the way they do. Do you think we have a bigger problem in California in a sense that the culture of California has changed, and we are getting from the leadership what we project as Californians?
I have spent a lot of time talking to our residents in different counties. I have talked to shop owners, small, medium, and large. I've talked to and spent time with police, sheriffs. I've talked to district attorneys. I've talked to academics. I've talked to those who work in Diablo with their last remaining nuclear power plants to understand perspective. I've talked to undocumented people within California that have been waiting in line 7, 8, 12 years to get documented. That's insanity. We've got to take care of our family first before we have these folks coming over the border right now. First of all, everyone needs to add value and pay taxes, okay? And we've got to take care of the farm workers in the Central Valley to make sure they're protected, because that's where 50% of our food comes from. And we have to have good conditions for them to work in, and they need to feel protected. We need to bring them into our environment, okay? And be responsible and add value. Have our leaders failed us, or have the people failed the leaders? I would say we failed as a whole and we need a reboot. We need a wholesale reboot, a disruption. Because the social experiment that has been tried obviously has failed all of us. And I don't think the leaders understand soup to nuts. They've never had a leader that understands all the disciplines, that was self-made, self-created, that rolls up sleeves and still operates. So we need a reboot of our culture and the way we take care of one another. We need leadership that has responsibility of we together, not somebody who pontificates with no execution and accountability and enforcement. These are tough decisions, okay? And as long as we move the ball forward and we say 1 is 1 and 2 is 2 and red is red and black is black, and we don't argue about silly things. We argue about, most important, educating our kids, having proper health care, having a safe and secure home, school, workplace, creating GDP, innovation through education, having strong fundamental tenets of ethics and morals. When it comes to stealing, I was talking to somebody and they said, oh, $950. Well, that's the 10th toughest misdemeanor crime rates in the United States. You know what it is in Texas? I said, I don't care what it is in Texas. In my book, and the commandment says, thou shalt not steal. It's not $950. It's 0. It's binary. We don't steal. That doesn't mean if somebody needs help and they need a loaf of bread and they're hurting, we provide them services and help them. We teach them how to fish. Okay? I have a problem with giving free needles away to addicts. It just boggles my mind. I have a problem with letting 38% of our prison population out of our state systems. I think that's the approximate number, something like that. Why is the budget still the same at $18 billion? How come it didn't go down by 38%? Can you answer me that question? I ask people that all the time. I can do simple math. Okay, why? Why? Why do we talk a big game, but with no execution, accountability, and enforcement? We should be demanding this. We should be yelling in the streets. We should recall those that can't do this. Okay, people should be held accountable, judged on their actions.
We're covering California issues, as you know. If you want us to cover the stories that are impacting your day-to-day life in California, reach out to me at siamak@californiainsider.com. So when you were building the shopping centers, you were 28. What was the culture of California like compared to today in terms of getting involved in public policy?
When I was building shopping centers in the 80s, we used to drive around. There was no Google Maps or Waze. There was no cell phones. I drove every street of all the 5 counties with a Thomas guide, a little map book, and put dots on the map. And I think we had a Lotus 123 spreadsheet, not Excel. But I go back to the days of basic Fortran, COBOL, TTY tape, and IBM punch cards. But we used our mind, and we had relationships, and we shook hands on a deal. I actually bought real estate on a yellow pad and wrote out the contract myself and shook hands with the owner of the land, and we made a deal. We didn't need a preponderance of lawyers. There were no lawsuits flying all over the place. And we built, and people were on time and on budget. And things worked. I did also go through the times when we had a gas crunch in California, and it was every other day you could buy gas depending on your license plate, odd or even. And there were lines for gas. But we got through that too. We used to call people on the telephone and have a chat. We didn't text. We created relationships with one another to build trust. And we lived by our word because still today, I operate, my name is my brand and my brand is my word. And it takes decades to build a brand. It takes 5 minutes to kill it. And you go back to the ethics and morals of what it was. Integrity. You never lied. Because word of mouth, they called you out. Do not do business with this person because that person doesn't tell the truth. And that's the number one thing in my book. I'll tell you something. Integrity. Do not lie. You tell the good, the bad, the ugly. You never lie. You live by your last name. And if you get taken advantage of by the occasional con artist or fraudster or extortionist to what you do, you fight. It's happened to me. You know what I do? I don't settle. A lot of people like to settle. Make it go away. No, I fight principle. Do not think of extorting, conning, or defrauding me. I will fight. And I fight for my friends. I fight for my family. I fought for my company. And I fight for those that I represent. I will fight. I make sure we always are against hate, and we always have a safe workplace or a safe environment. No blood, no death.
Now, Stephen, do you think it's possible at this stage of the culture you see in California, do you think it's possible to bring those values back?
Everything's solvable, Harry Reid told me, and I still believe it today. I've taken on the most difficult, the most unsolvable, and it's solvable. If we together can do it, it's going to take the big we. Not one person can do it, but a philosophy and a culture and a drive and aspiration. My bet is California will stabilize. And those in Nevada, Tennessee, Wyoming, Texas, and Florida will come back because there's not a better state to live in the United States than California. Trust me, I had a choice of living anywhere I wanted to. I didn't have to come back home. I wanted to come back home because I grew up here and I love California. This is my home. And my children want to live here. And I'm so involved now politically to help those others and teach, coach, counsel what I've learned from the greatest minds in business, politics, policy, medicine, academia. And if I don't know the answer, because I don't know everything, I'm not a perfect man. You're not either. None of us are. But I'm always used to working together and finding good solutions. If I don't know, I'm going to go find the best people and bring them in, talk about it, come up with an idea. And the concept, what's different is we used to get 80% of the way there and get it done and fix the last 20% as we go. Pivot. I'm the master of pivot. And it's okay to get smacked in the face here and there because you don't get anywhere unless you get beaten up a little bit. And I like it because that means I'm learning. I'm getting better. We're making improvements. Beat me up, hit me, say anything you want. You can say anything you want about me. I don't care. It's already been said. I am secure. I'm a self-made man. I believe in freedom. And we all should have that freedom and the aspiration for our kids to do better than us. Because I was taught that by my grandfather and my father, and I teach my children that now. Do as you believe in. Don't compete with me. Do what you believe in. I'll be there to be your trapeze net and go like this in the back of the theater and watch you succeed. And everyone in California can have that dream, and we can do that again together with different leadership. It has to be wholeheartedly different. And if people think electing those that have come up the chain in command who don't have the experience are going to give you anything different, well, God bless you. You're going to be arguing, kicking, and screaming and being upset. We need a full-hearted change both in the state where California is the bully pulpit again. We're 12%, 11, 12% of the United States. The fifth largest GDP in the world. We're a country. Can we act like that, please? Can we participate in the big discussions again? Okay, meet in the middle. Every good negotiation ends up with each side losing a little. But we've got this beautiful, diverse geographic land. Tip to tail, 58 counties. It's the best place in the world. By far. I've traveled everywhere. Everywhere. People will yearn to come back to California. You go spend a summer in Las Vegas or in Austin or Dallas or Miami. Are you kidding me? No, thank you. No, thank you.
Stephen, do you have any other thoughts for our audience?
I think in summation, this is beautiful, by the way. I wish your show is so good, by the way.
Thank you.
I watch it all the time. I've got my friends to watch it. It's diverse. It's California, by the way. It is California. Look, California is a country. California, as we know, is no longer affordable, livable, nor workable. But it's the best state. California is the best state in the United States. California will be that bully pulpit again. California will be back open for business because I know that I'm going to be actively involved in facilitating great leaders to become better leaders in this state and use all my experience and attributes to make sure my children have a bright future and your children do too in California. And all those folks that left, they'll be back. They'll be back here to the Golden State. I promise you that. I promise you.
Stephen J. Cloobeck, entrepreneur, political activist, and philanthropist. It was great to have you on California Insider.
Thank you for having me today.